So what I'm gonna do today is I'm gonna show you how you can take this,
you know I come at that bottom, making it out is a problem,
and turn it into this.
I graduated out of the streets, I know I wasn't going to college.
All with stock plugins. Well, stock Pro Tools outside of Auto-Tune, of course. What's up, guys? Hey, this is Jordan, aka MixedByJE, back at it with all the heatness, with all the drip, with all the sauce nuggets. You already know if you've been checking out this channel for any time at all. The reason why I'm making this video is because I remember early on as an upcoming engineer, as I was just getting into the game, as I was super fresh, kind of getting into it, one of the very costly mistakes that I made is I felt like if I really wanted my mixes to sound like the radio, if I really wanted my mixes to actually sound good, I had to go out and invest all kinds of money into all the top plugins. I really thought that I had to have every single plugin on the market to kind of get that radio ready sound. After multiple thousands of dollars that I invested in plugins, the first few years, quite honestly, it just kind of gave me a headache. And the reason why is because I just invested, you know, a couple $100s on plugins, and my mixes sounded different, but not really better. Now, are third-party plugins evil? Absolutely not. You know that I'm a Waves fan, you know that I'm a UAD fan, you know I'm a FabFilter fan, but I hope by the end of this video, if you're just getting started and you don't have a huge budget to invest in the, you know, the $200, $300 plugins, you can get a really solid sound with stock plugins that everybody's gonna have, whether you're using FL Studio, Logic, Pro Tools. In this example, we're gonna be using Pro Tools, but you can use these exact same techniques in Logic, in FL Studio, and PreSonus, really any recording software that you're using, because we're really just using your basic plugins, your EQ, your compression, your reverb, your delays, real basic stuff that comes stock in just about any recording software. I will have a link to purchase this template to save you some time. And not only that, I've included within that download an additional PDF to help you kind of tweak this template around your setup. Because if you've been engineering any time at all, you know that about any setup kind of sounds a little bit different. We'll talk about that a little bit more toward the back end of the video, but I'm gonna go ahead and get my face off the screen. Let's go ahead and jump into Pro Tools. Let's check it out. All right, guys, so if you've been following the page for a little bit, you've probably seen the video where I did make another stock Pro Tools template that's actually a free download on my site. This one's just a little more in depth. I've spent a little bit more time kind of molding this one. What I have here is I've just got a few different tracks. They're all a little bit different. One's kind of got an R&B feel, one's got a typical hip-hop feel, the one kind of has a melodic / trap feel. I will preface this, as I've said already in the video, these are 100% stock Pro Tools plugins, every bit of them, except for Auto-Tune. Outside of that, as you can see, the EQ compressor, all that stuff is 100% stock Pro Tools plugins. So let's go ahead and kind of break down what I have going on here.
You know I come at that bottom, making it out is a problem. I graduated out of the streets, I know I wasn't going to college. Put in that work, you get reinstated. I can't find my feelings, I must have misplaced it. You can't fight the feeling, you just gotta face it. I'm getting back to business, I'm getting back to Franklin's.
You know how we rockin' like a headboard. Hey, Sap, just like Rocket, we a fucking problem. Whoa, Bobby, Ricky Bobby, in and out the pocket. 380 Bobby, 40 Ricky, if they out of pocket, no violence. But if they push it, then you know it's falling.
So in this template, I'm literally not changing anything. I've kind of molded a template that's going to fit just about any vocal whenever it comes to hip hop, R&B, pop. I haven't really experimented outside of those genres because I typically don't work outside of those genres personally. If you do use this template in another genre, let me know how it works. But in this specific example, not changing anything, definitely molded this template around the hip hop, trap, /pop /R&B vocal. So clearly this template is doing something, right? Without further ado, I'm not gonna even talk about anything but the drip and how I got to this point to where all these vocals have got kind of that radio ready sound without adjusting anything within this template that I'm going to walk you guys through. So let's go ahead and jump into the vocal bus. So I route all my vocals through a vocal bus. Nobody has time to be throwing all these plugins on each individual track. So I've got everything, all these vocals routed to my vocal bus here, as you can see, which is bus 1 and 2. So let's actually go ahead and mute each of the plugins, and I'm going to kind of unmute them as we go along to kind of show you exactly what each plugin is doing. As you see, we're starting with the EQ. So pretty much what I'm doing here is I've got the low frequencies, kind of the mess, the rumble that probably don't really need. So I'm rolling off right at about 80 here. This can kind of differ between track to track. Sometimes I will have this down at about 60 to 65. I'll be honest, 80 is about the max that I typically go, because anything past 80, if you start rolling anything past 80, a lot of times you kind of start losing the fullness of your vocal. Where a lot of my cleanup actually comes from is a low shelf rather than the high pass filter here. So if you're using Pro Tools, more than likely you're going to have the bell EQ selected. So to go to the shelf, you literally just click here, and what I'm rolling off here is everything from 400 hertz down. I'm shelving right at about 4.5 dB of EQ, so I'm kind of shaving off some of that low end rumble there. And then around the 200 frequency, just notching a little bit of that, just kind of cleaning up the room tone, that type stuff. Some of the muddy frequencies that I just didn't want. Then we get down here in the 700 range. That's kind of the nasally, the honk sound that I was getting. And then the right at about the 2.5 area is the kind of the harsh sound, like the real sharp sound. Is a frequency that quite honestly will hurt your ears if you listen to it too long and too loud. So I've got a little bit of that knocked out, and just a subtle boost, really right at 6K. The reason why I'm not boosting too much is because most of these vocals were recorded on a Neumann 103, which already has a boost in that area. So I didn't want to boost it too much, because it'll kind of make your vocals start to sound a little thin and a little too airy. We'll kind of play it so you can kind of see what we're doing with the EQ.
You know I come out at bottom, making it out is a problem. I graduated out of the streets, I know I wasn't going to college. Skipping school just to go to the trap and hang around dealers and robbers. I'm trying to get a whole lot of guap, I'm talking bank deposits.
And another thing that I'll mention here too is with me shelving this much low end with this low end shelf, that's going to be added back in the parallel compression, which is something that we'll kind of cover later in the video. So that's just kind of the cleanup phase. Let's jump into the compression. So I have a medium attack and a medium release, which is pretty typical within rap vocals. My ratio that I have here is a 4:1 ratio, and I got my threshold set to where I'm probably going to be hitting right at about 6 dB of compression here. So without it,
you know I come out at bottom, making it out is a problem. I graduated out of the streets.
now with it.
You know I come out at bottom, making it out is a problem. I graduated out of the streets, I know I wasn't going to college.
So as you can tell, that kind of brings the vocal up front a little bit more, kind of helps the vocal kind of stand out a little bit more. Then the next thing that we have here is the de-esser. I normally like to set my de-esser right at about 4.2K. You know, that's going to kind of be dependent on your setup. In this example, this is kind of doing exactly what I needed to do, just kind of cleaning up some of the S's.
You know I come out at bottom, making it out is a problem. I graduated out of the streets, I know I wasn't going to college. Skipping school just to go to the trap and hang around dealers and robbers.
So as you can tell, it's kind of bringing down the nasty S frequency. That's what a de-esser is. Pretty self-explanatory there. Nothing too much happening there. As you can see, I was barely kind of tapping it. I think I was hitting like right at 2 dB. And then from there, we're jumping into the air EQ, which is another, I mean, the whole video's stock Pro Tools plugins. I don't know why I keep saying that. Really what I'm doing here, I'm not doing anything but just adding a little bit of shine, a little bit of air to the vocal here. As you can see, it's 1.5 dB of the high frequency here in the air EQ. Let's play it without it.
You know I come out at bottom, making it out is a problem. I graduated out of the streets, I know I wasn't going to college. Skipping school just to go to the trap.
So that leads us into the next thing, which is the glorious reverb. So let's pull up the reverb that I'm using here. In this template, I'm using the church setting. I have kind of tweaked it a little bit, I believe. I think the church setting, it starts you out at like 8.5 0.7 seconds of decay, which is a little too much for me personally. So I've dialed that back just a little bit. I think I have adjusted the pre-delay as well to 30. All the cuts in the low pass filter over here, this is actually just stock from the church preset in the Reverb. So let's play it without the reverb.
You know I come out that bottom, making it out is a problem.
With it.
You know I come out that bottom, making it out is a problem. I graduated out of the street.
Uh-oh, now we're getting saucy. Oh yeah, let's play it without the beat.
You know I come out that bottom, making it out is a problem. I graduated out of the streets. I know I wasn't going to college.
Oh yeah, we're getting in the ballpark now. So from there, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add this lo-fi plugin, which is, hey, shout out to Jason Joshua. If you're not following Jason Joshua on Instagram, on social, you got to follow the GOAT. This man is mixing all of your favorite records right now. I picked up this trick from him. Kind of what the lo-fi is doing, not doing too much outside of pulling the sample rate down to 15 bits. And I've got the distortion up 0.1 and the saturation to 0.1 as well. If you go much more than that, you're going to start distorting stuff. I don't want distorted vocals. If you want distorted vocals, hey, you do what you do. But what this lo-fi is kind of doing, it kind of works as like a compressor. For me, whenever I'm pulling the sample size down, it kind of pushes the vocal up front a little bit. It kind of puts the vocal right in front of your face. I know it's you're kind of bit crushing, which is kind of helping that vocal just punch through the mix a little bit more. So this is kind of a subtle edit. I'll play you what it sounds like without it.
You know I come out that bottom, making it out is a problem. I graduated out of the streets. I know I wasn't going to college. Skipping school just to go to the trap and hang around dealers and robbers.
So we'll play it without the beat.
You know I come out that bottom, making it out is a problem. I graduated out of the streets. I know I wasn't going to college.
So kind of what that's doing is it's kind of adding a little, for me, it kind of adds a little bit of grit too to it. It just kind of gives it a certain texture that I personally like. From there, we got the delay, the mod delay, the stock Pro Tools delay. We got to make sure that we got our tempo right over here too, where this delay is not going to be on time. Just adding a little bit of delay on here. It's literally 7%, which is not much at all. Just kind of filling up the gaps just a little bit. So we'll play it without the delay.
You know I come out that bottom, making it out is a problem. I graduated out of the streets. I know I wasn't going to college. Skipping school just to go to the trap.
Without the beat.
You know I come out that bottom, making it out is a problem. I graduated out of the streets. I know I wasn't going to college. Skipping school just to go to the trap and hang around dealers and robbers.
Yeah, you know, we're getting there now. So from there, what we're going to talk about now, this is a little bit more advanced, I guess you would say. Now we're going to be working with a send, which is going to be this parallel compressor. So what this parallel compression is going to be doing, we're running these vocals through some super heavy compression and kind of adding it back up under the vocal to kind of bring the vocal more forward and to kind of make the vocal a little more full. I'm going to play it.
You know I come out that bottom, making it out is a problem.
So as you can see, I'm compressing this thing to the max. But what we're doing is we're just kind of subtly adding it back up under the vocal to give the vocal a little bit of life, to fill out the vocal to where we cut some of the frequencies with the EQ. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play it without the parallel compression.
You know I come out that bottom, making it out is a problem. I graduated out of the streets. I know I wasn't going to college. Skipping school just to go to the trap and hang around dealers and robbers.
So if you can't hear that, that is a night and day difference. I will say this. If you are using a send whenever you're recording, sometimes latency becomes an issue. So if you are recording using this template, I would recommend probably muting this until you're ready to start mixing your track. And last but not least, whenever you're ready to export the file down, we're going to be using a stock Pro Tools limiter, which is going to give you the extra volume that you may need to make sure that your record is not ridiculously quiet. So without the limiter,
you know I come out that bottom, making it out is a problem.
With the limiter.
You know I come out that bottom, making it out is a problem. I graduated out of the streets. I know I wasn't going to college. Skipping school just to go to the trap.
So literally what I'm doing is I'm just pulling this threshold down to where I'm barely just getting a little bit of reduction over here. So as you can see,
You know I come out that bottom, making it out is a problem.
now if you start going to -6, I mean, that's going to get pretty nasty. You're going to be compressing the heck out of your file. So don't go super crazy over here. Just pull it down to where you're just barely tapping that. But outside of that, guys, you are ready to export that file with that radio ready sound using some stock Pro Tools plugins. Who would have thought? Who would have guessed? And last but not least, guys, one of the things that I mentioned early on in this video, if you want to save yourself a little bit of time, I have provided down in the description a link to actually purchase this template. It'll save yourself a little bit of time to where you can just literally drag, drop, you got your template. But not only that, I've also included a PDF of a few different tweaks, of a few different hacks that you can use to kind of tweak this template to really match your setup. Because as you know, just about everybody's setup is probably just a little bit different. Everybody's kind of recording in a different environment. Now, I did kind of mold it to where it's probably going to fit most vocals, but for the subtle tweaks that you may need to use to kind of get this similar sound, I'm going to include here within the PDF some typical problem frequencies that you can notch out with the EQ, a few different things that you can do with the compressor if your vocals sound too compressed, overly compressed, that type stuff. And not only that, I will have a breakdown of the different reverbs and what reverb would probably sound best on your vocal and how to tweak that according to your setup. But outside of that, guys, hopefully this gave you a little bit of peace. Hopefully this gave you a little bit of knowledge to get your vocals sounding just like the radio using some stock plugins. Hey, if this was helpful at all, I would love to hear your feedback. That wraps up the video for today. Until next time, I am getting out of here. We'll see you soon. Peace.